Could you imagine that this old ghost town, just 2 hours from Las Vegas, once had the potential to become the most prosperous city in the American Southwest? That's right, in the early years of the 20th century, everyone believed it would become a major city. Yet, as you can see today, it lies abandoned, serving only as a reminder of its past. So how could something so right go so wrong? Stay tuned to find out, as today we discover the rise and fall of Rhyolite. I'm your host Ryan Socash, and you're watching It's History. Let's set the stage in a time when the American West underwent significant changes thanks to territorial expansion, economic growth, and social transformation. Our story really starts in July of 1849, when Abner Blackburn, a former member of the Mormon Battalion, made his first gold discovery in the region. Shortly after, in May of 1850, William Prowse, a member of a group of immigrants passing through the area, discovered a second vein higher up in Gold Canyon. Although the discoverers of these gold deposits believed that the promised riches of California would be more significant, most of the immigrants continued their journey westward. However, some did return, where they promptly discovered that most of California's valuable rivers and streams had already been claimed. Hence, they turned right around to the town that would eventually be known as Rhyolite. By the spring of 1851, approximately 200 placer miners, including James Finney, worked in the area. And in their occupation of the mouth of Gold Canyon, they formed the first non-native settlement in Nevada. Another significant event occurred a few years later in 1861, after the Civil War, when the United States government prompted policies to open the way westward. The Homestead Act allowed settlers to receive 160 acres of public land in exchange for cultivation, attracting various groups in search of new opportunities, from settlers to miners and railroad workers. Additionally, railroad construction emerged as a crucial element in the development of the American West. The most notable milestone was the completion of the first transcontinental railroad in 1869, facilitating economic growth by opening markets and promoting livestock, mining, and the agricultural industries. And the result of these investments was the creation of towns and even cities along the routes. In other words, the discovery of gold, westward expansion, and railroad construction were crucial events that defined Rhyolite's future development. However, this era was also marked by conflicts and the displacement of Native American tribes. The settlers' westward advancement invaded indigenous land, triggering violent conflicts and forced relocations. Government policies such as the Indian Removal Act and treaties resulted in the loss of territory and autonomy for Native Americans. There were also tragic events like the Battle of Bighorn in 1876 and the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890. Events that many historians perceive as an illustration of Native resistance and suffering. Even so, the image of the American West as a land of opportunity and adventure became deeply integrated in the national consciousness. Iconic figures such as cowboys, outlaws, and lawmen emerged and were later glorified in literature and pop culture. Although life on the frontier was tough, the idea of the West as a place of unlimited opportunities continued to fascinate Americans and define the national identity. Additionally, gold discovery around Bullfrog in 1904 changed the region entirely. So now that we have the context, let's move forward to 1904, when Frank Shorty Harris, a legend in American prospecting history, and his partner Ed Cross discovered substantial gold in the hills of Bullfrog, a name chosen because of the green-toned rocks that characterized the area. This discovery triggered a significant gold rush in the area and established several mining camps in less than a year in what would later be known as the Bullfrog Mining District. And so it was. The town of Rhyolite emerged in early 1905, approximately 190 kilometers northwest of Las Vegas, near the eastern boundary of Death Valley National Park. It was named after rhyolite, a volcanic rock similar to granite that was abundant in the area. Rhyolite, too, was initially started as just another mining camp until a group of claim owners decided that promoting a town instead of a working mine might be even more lucrative due to the valuable mineral samples found in the area. So with the planning of 36 blocks, the land was distributed among the miners to start a permanent camp. The Montgomery Shoshone mine was discovered north of the town in February of the same year, making it the district's most significant. And by 1905, out of all of the mining camps established, Rhyolite emerged as a district favorite, attracting traders and businessmen from Bullfrog. Despite its modest beginnings as a tent camp, Rhyolite rapidly grew into a bustling urban center, with around 2,000 residents by the summer of 1905. However, water supply was a crucial challenge, and 3 companies competed to bring water to the area, culminating in the first system by July of that same year. That same year, an emblematic landmark of the city was built, and still stands to this day. The Bottle House in Rhyolite was built in 1905, using, as the name might suggest, beer bottles which were in high abundance in the city. You see, 76-year-old Australian miner Tom Kelly began constructing it in September of that year. This was in a time before railroads reached the area, and materials were scarce and expensive, so Kelly used empty bottles and mud, and after 6 months of work, he completed his unique house using around 50,000 bottles. The following year, a school was built and 4 stagecoach lines began serving the town. This triggered even more expansive growth and development in the city. Newspapers of the time described the frantic construction activity and economic boom by dubbing Rhyolite as, quote, the real jewel of the West, and highlighting the growing investment and arrival of new residents. Rhyolite's peak population reached up to 10,000 inhabitants by late 1907. 2 newspapers, the Rhyolite Herald and the Bullfrog Miner, operated in the city, and then another pinnacle moment occurred when the city was finally connected via 3 railroads to Las Vegas, Goldfield, and beyond. Earl R. Clemens, publisher of the Rhyolite Herald, recounts his arrival in the town and the incredible popularity back then, as well as some of the challenges faced by a boomtown. Reading, quote, town lots were selling so fast and at such high prices that the townsite agents sold out the newspaper office location and kept moving reservation to less desirable lots until we finally could get the print shop into town. Many impressive buildings were constructed around this time, including the impressive Cook Bank, a 3-story building with time-locked vaults in the basement, Italian marble stairs, and imported stained glass windows. Streetlights were also installed, and for those who needed to worship, Rhyolite established the first Catholic and Presbyterian churches in Death Valley. In just 2 years, the city had gone from a tent camp to a significant metropolis with modern infrastructure, including electricity, concrete sidewalks, water lines, telephones, banks, police and fire departments, a stock exchange, an opera house, a hospital, and a school. Although rather far away physically, the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and the 1907 financial panic marked the beginning of Rhyolite's end. Capital market restrictions drastically limited funds available for further mine development, leaving the city at the mercy of its primary industry, mining. On one hand, the 1906 California earthquake was one of the most significant in U.S. history, striking the northern coast of California on April the 18th with a magnitude around 7.9 on the Richter scale, just devastating San Francisco and beyond. But the waves of its impact financially affected the world in very, very unprecedented ways. The destruction was massive, with buildings reduced to rubble and extensive fires. Nearly 3,000 people died, and over 80% of the city was destroyed. Then, as if that was not problematic enough, the 1907 financial panic was triggered by a series of events, including the bankruptcy of the Knickerbocker Trust Company, leading to widespread panic and a bank run. And the United States was not prepared for this. You see, the lack of a central banking authority to provide liquidity support to struggling banks exacerbated the situation, resulting in severe credit tightening and economic recession. In situations like this, big cities can bounce back, but little emerging towns like Rhyolite, well, that's a different story. In response, the National Monetary Commission was created, and the Federal Reserve Act was established in 1913, giving rise to the Federal Reserve System. This new central banking system was designed to provide a more flexible currency and act as a lender of last resorts in financial crisis. Unfortunately for Rhyolite, it was too little, too late. After all of this, Rhyolite still needed access to investments, as it relied solely on its own resources to generate income, a scenario that was unsustainable. Signs of trouble in the mines emerged in early 1908 when the Montgomery Shoshone mine, the district's largest producer, began depleting its ore. By 1909, no new ore was being discovered, and it became clear that the mine's days were numbered. A situation perhaps best described by the Engineering and Mining Journal from 1909, asserting that Rhyolite was comparatively a failure, reflecting the rapid decline of the mining industry in the entire region. The situation worsened after other mines in the district faced similar outcomes. The high-grade ore that had brought fame to the Bullfrog region turned out to be in narrow veins that were depleted at depth, and the lower-grade ore was not profitable in those days. By 1910, Rhyolite's population had drastically dwindled down to just 10% of its peak, and by that year, all three of the city's banks had closed. Rhyolite's rapid downfall was further evidenced by the successive closure of vital institutions. The last newspaper ceased publication in June of 1912, followed by the closure of the post office in November of 1913, and then the last train departed Rhyolite Station in 1914. By 1916, the city had been mostly abandoned, with much of its modern infrastructure removed. It is said that what was taken has been repurposed elsewhere. For example, the Miners' Union Hall became the Beatty Town Hall, and parts of many buildings were used to construct schools in Beatty. These days, Rhyolite lies in ruin as a ghost town, a silent reminder of its glorious past and subsequent decline. Managed by the Bureau of Land Management, this abandoned city has become a popular tourist destination, attracting visitors from around the world, seeking to immerse themselves in its history and beauty. And that's nothing new. Remember newsman Earl R. Clemens from earlier? Well, he actually came back to the town in 1939, after it was already abandoned, and recounted how everything had changed in just 34 years. Recalling, quote, "The railroads of Rhyolite have vanished. The water lines are gone. Businesses have ceased to exist, and the Miners' Union Hospital is no more. Every wooden building in the city area has disappeared. However, about 6 small buildings have been inherited from Rhyolite, once recognized worldwide as the greatest gold camp." So let's suffice it to say that the buildings that still stand in Rhyolite these days have bared witness to the past. The Erie train station transports us to the heyday of the American West. The ruins of the Cook Bank, once impressive, now offer a bleak glimpse of past prosperity. The Porter's Brothers store, the school, and that famous beer bottle house. Rhyolite has been dubbed one of the most photographed towns in the West, and it's easy to see why. Its desolate landscapes and crumbling structures provide an evoking backdrop for photographers and travelers seeking to capture that essence of the Old West. A notion which I believe brings us full circle. So with that, I thank you all for watching. Hope you'll consider subscribing and joining the channel. Until next time, I'm Ryan Socash, signing off.